Hello friends, and welcome to episode 3 of Conversations with Spirit. My name is Intuitive Rene, and it's always an honor and a privilege to be here with you and to bring you this awesome, inspiring content. Today's episodes with Spirit are going to be a little bit different from the two that we've had. If you are used to my channel, if you are used to me, you know that nothing ever stays the same for long. Things change, things are forever evolving, and I think, there's a message for each one of us in that as well, in that we must never accept the status quo. We must never settle for anything in our lives. We need to be constantly changing, not just for the sake of change, but to just be open to evolution, to be open to change, and to be open to doing things a little bit differently and not being afraid to do things a little bit differently. So with my two previous conversations with Spirit, the first one was almost like my journal diary kind of process in asking questions, getting answers, and then, sort of sharing those epiphanies with you. And the second one was also like that. This one has I've sort of been preparing, working towards, trying to journal, trying to put stuff down for a month since the last episodes with Spirit. And what I found was happening was that every time I try to control the process, Spirit are like, nope, kill it, not happening. Okay, so I've struggled because I am not a kind of person who handles structure very well. I'm not the kind of person who likes to know what's coming up. I like to just be spontaneous and to just let things happen as they wanted to. So what I try to do with my conversations with Spirit is, now I've tried to control it too much. I've tried to, if I can say, determine the outcome a little bit, and that's clearly not what Spirit want and not what the intention was in this particular series of Conversations with Spirit. So when it came close to recording this particular video, I was feeling very uncertain and very unsure of myself, like what was going to happen, what was going to come through, what were we going to talk about, because I didn't have anything written down. And then a couple of days ago, a Spirit sort of said to me, why don't you ask the people who watch your content, the people who we're doing this for, all of you out there, why don't we ask you what you wanted? So I put up a question to my YouTube channel members, and I put up a question in my Facebook group. And I sort of said, if you could ask Spirit anything, what would you want to know? Not about you personally, because this is not a get a free reading kind of a conversation with Spirit, not at all. This is more around what kind of pressing things do you want to know about the bigger picture. And I must say that I received some amazing, amazing questions. Then I got stuck into sort of writing the question down and trying to get an answer from Spirit, and that didn't work either, because it just so happened that life got a bit busy for me on a personal level, and I didn't have the time to dedicate. And to record these videos, I have to slot them into my diary. So this is scheduled time that I have to blank out. And this is my scheduled time, but I don't have the answers. And I was having a bit of a mild panic about it. And then Spirit said to me, what are you panicking about? Ask the questions and we will give you the answers. So we're going in this a little bit blind today, friends. So bear with me. I have absolutely no idea how it's going to work. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I don't even know which questions I'm answering. I have your questions, and I'm just going to go through them, and I'm just going to, I haven't prepared anything. My table, as you can see over there, is a bit blank, a bit empty. I don't even have a tarot deck out. I'll tell you what I do have out is I have a singing bowl. This is my small little hand-beaten singing bowl, Tibetan singing bowl. I have that. And I have a deck of cards. And that's it. I have nothing else around me. I've got a cup of coffee too, but that's not going to help anybody. So I'm just going to go with the flow, and I'm just going to read a question, and I'm just going to give you whatever I get from Spirit. And we're going to see where this is going to go. So at the time of recording this, right now, while you are watching and listening to this, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just going to trust. And I think, again, message for you and I, for every single one of us right now. We don't always have to know where we're going. We don't always have to know the outcome. We don't always have to know what's going to happen. But what we do have to do is have an open heart, an open mind, and we have to trust. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here today. So let's get straight into it. Let's look at the questions, let's pick a question, and let's see what wants to come through from Spirit. Before I do that, I am going to just spend a bit of time with the singing bowl. I know this is not everybody's cup of tea. I know not everybody enjoys the sound of a singing bowl, but for me, the action of playing a singing bowl just really helps me to just get into the moment. It's not something I do every time I connect with spirit. I have, before I push the record button, done all the things that I do to connect with spirit. So all my protections are up. I have invited and called in all the angels, all the ascended masters, all my spirit guides, all the people that are relevant and appropriate, all the energies that are relevant and appropriate. I have called and invited them in. So let's just set the tone. Let's just use the singing bowl. Let's just set the tone, and let's just open ourselves up. So be open to receive and allow the vibration of this particular singing bowl to give you any healing that you may need, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever it may be. Let the sound of the singing bowl just be open to receive. That's all I'm going to say. I can still hear it. You probably can't, but it's still going. It's still going. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to keep it handy. I'm going to keep it close by. If we need to use it again, we certainly shall. But I hope you enjoyed that, friends. All right. So excuse my eyes. I'm probably going to jump around a bit because I'm going to call up Facebook. I'm going to call up my YouTube, and I'm going to look at the questions, and I'm just going to let Spirit guide us to grab one. So excuse my eyes as I jump around on my computer screen here looking for a question, but let's see what comes through. Just want to remove that. I should have done this before, but as I said, I'm going into this completely blind. Okay, first question comes from Tracy, and this is on my YouTube channel. Tracy wants to know how to not live in the ego, and she's put in brackets expectations and entitlement, meaning receiving back from people when you give time, energy, and love, etc., within an egotistical world. So just to read the question again, how to not live in the ego within an egotistical world. Now, to me, this particular question is just like, poof, mind-blowing. Because it is the truth, isn't it? My mouth is working faster than anything else. The world that we're living in at the moment, it is absolutely an ego world. What does ego mean? Ego means tangible, physical. Ego means the feelings, the energies of the world. We are in an ego world. Everything is ego. We have been raised and programmed and conditioned to achieve, to do well, to succeed, to have, and all of that is ego stuff. That is all tangible earth human experiences is ego. That's what it is. So how do we not allow the negative aspect? Because I'm now changing Tracy's question to be more around the negative aspect. So how do we live in a world which is full of negative? And I think this may answer quite a few other questions that have been asked, because now as I'm connecting and as I'm allowing spirit to come through, I'm sort of hearing the question evolve. I think evolve is going to be our keyword. So how do we live in an egotistical world without allowing ourselves to succumb to the negative aspects of ego? So when we understand ego is our drive, ego is our human. To be human is to have an ego. You cannot be without ego, because if you are without ego, you are without human essence. So to be human is to have an ego, but there are negative attachments to ego. There are negative aspects to ego, but as there are to anything in life. Because if you think about it, let's just talk about food for a minute. If we eat food is positive, food is good, food is necessary, food is nourishment, it's all of those kind of things. But too much of it immediately creates a negative. Too much of anything creates the negative. So how do we live in an egotistical world without being egotistical ourselves? You can't. Simple. You can't. What you can do is you can be mindful of your ego. You can, I don't want to say control, but you can manage your ego better, so that you don't allow the negative aspects of your own ego to influence the who, the what, the when, and the how. So when you're mindful, and I think, being a spiritual being, being somebody who lives in an earth-centered spiritual world, we have to be mindful of our words, our thoughts, our actions all the time. It is exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting when you are just being that person the whole time. To be perfect, and when I say perfect, I mean from a spiritual point of view, to be this person who doesn't do, say, think, or feel anything negative is impossible. We cannot, because we are living in an egotistical world. We are living in a world of competition, of achievement, accomplishment, of greed, of so many different things. And we have to do that because we've chosen, our souls, our essence has chosen this earth experience now, in these times, in the time of pandemic, in the time of chaos. In the time of chaos, we have selected and chosen. We've put our hands up and said, I'll go. I'll go. We have chosen to arrive and have an earth experience now while all this is going on. We have chosen to participate in this ego war. We have chosen to participate in this, not for any other reason, but from a collective to help evolution. So how do we survive? How do we cope? How do we live? How do we achieve? Going back to Tracy's question, how to not live in the ego within an egotistical world. And as I said, unfortunately, we can't. We are ego. Ego is us. Everything that we think, that we feel, that we know is ego-based. So you cannot live in this human world. You cannot live on earth. You cannot be alive right now without ego. But it's about recognizing, it's about acknowledging, it's about understanding that we mustn't allow the ego to be our driving force. We mustn't allow our greed and our negative aspects of the ego to be our driving force. We need to recognize that we are human, and to human is to err. To be human means that you are going to be imperfect, because nobody is perfect. Camera's out of focus. To be human is to be faulty, to have imperfections, to recognize. But it's not about comparing yourself to anybody else, because when we start comparing ourselves to somebody else, suddenly we are in ego again, because comparing means one has to be better than the other. So we mustn't compare. We must accept. We must live in love. We must live with integrity, we must live with honesty, and we must live with love. We must not have unrealistic, unexpected expectations. We need to accept each other, ourselves, first and foremost, ourselves before other people. We need to accept ourselves for who and what we are without expectation. I have picked up a tarot deck. And the tarot deck that I'm holding in my hands, now I have to say I may not actually even draw a card, but just holding it in my hands and shuffling, it almost keeps my ego busy. It keeps my human busy, it keeps my ego busy, so that I can receive whatever the message is from spirit. So if you see me shuffling a deck, it doesn't mean I'm actually have intentions of drawing. It's just to keep the ego busy, to keep the ego doing something, to keep the mind busy, to keep the hands busy, to keep the human busy, so that the mouth and the soul can be free to receive and to express. So I am just going to shuffle. I am just going to look down at the cards and shuffle, but I am just going to allow myself to speak. So Spirit is saying ego is not bad. What we do with ego is when it determines good or bad. It's what we do with the ego that determines who we are and whether we're succeeding or whether we're good or we're bad. But having the ego is absolutely, it's what you have. You cannot live without it. But it's about choosing the race that you want to participate in. So what I mean by that is Spirit is saying to me that, if you are an athlete and you are wanting to perform in a particular athletic event, there is that conscious decision that is made, I want to enter that race. We then go through the process of entering the race, of doing the paperwork and the commitment, making the commitment, etc. Then there is the preparation. And the preparation could be, a more strenuous, intense training in the run up to the date of the race, of the physical event. And then it's arriving on the day and actually going through the motions. Now, I am not an athlete, not a physical athlete in any case. But I understand how it works, and as I'm sure you do if you're not an athlete yourself. So you can prepare, train, and you can do everything textbook by the book. You can make sure that you have absolutely prepared yourself 100% for the race, that you have got a strategy, an action plan, you've got it all mapped out. But on the day, things could go completely right or completely wrong. And we have no control over that. The ego is what we need to manage here. So when you are preparing for the race, when you are doing everything that is needed to prepare for the race, that is ego saying, this is how it's going to work. This is us predetermining outcomes. And again, it's all making sense now. The way that this conversation with Spirit has unfolded, the way that I was trying to prepare and I couldn't prepare, or it wasn't going according to my plan, but it was going according to Spirit's plan, and then me just trusting. So when it comes to race day, you arrive with your strategy, with your ego. You arrive knowing what it is you have to do. Step, 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 certain pace, certain accomplishments, everything worked out to the tiniest of details. You could have bad weather. You could trip and fall. You could have a stomach cramp. There are so many things that could go wrong that could cause your entire strategy to be lost. And that's what it's meant to be. That is when you realize that your ego actually doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, because it does matter, okay? Your ego does matter, but you cannot control everything, and sometimes you just got to go with the flow. Sometimes you have to roll with the punches. Sometimes you have to just accept the way things work out, and it's not an indication of bad planning or bad prep or bad, training. Not at all. And I think, going back to Tracy's question, how do we live without ego in an egotistical world? You cannot do so. But what we have to do is we have to sometimes recognize that we can do our absolute best. We can give 100% of ourselves in strategy, in planning, in preparation, in all of that, and yet we can still fail. And that is not an indication of a personal failure. It is an indication of circumstance. What we do from that point is where the ego comes into it again. Because if at that point you choose to allow yourself to feel defeated, to give up, if you throw your hands up in the air and say, well, that's it, I'm clearly not destined to win that particular race, so that's it, I'm never entering again, I'm never participating again, I'm never doing this again. If that is the way that you respond to a negative situation, then you're never going to achieve anything in life. Then your ego has won, because the ego felt a bit bruised, the ego felt a bit disappointed, the ego felt a bit upset because we didn't succeed. Things didn't go according to our plan. But what Spirit is saying to us is that sometimes things don't go according to plan, and there's lessons and learning for us in that. We have to accept the good with the bad. We have to recognize that life is a balance, and it's a very sensitive balance. We can't always be on the up. We can't always be successful, and we can't always achieve. Sometimes we have to lose to give somebody else the opportunity to win. If we feel like it's our right to win every single time, then that is ego driving you. And Spirit will knock you back a couple of pegs. Spirit will force you to have a failure, force you to lose, force you to come second, third, fourth, or last, to bring that balance into the equations. Okay, I am going to draw a card because I can and because I like to, and I just want to see what card comes through. Curiosity gets the better of me, the ego gets the better of me, right? Let's just shuffle and see which card. This is the Shimmering Veil Tarot. I love the Shimmering Veil. Whenever I do any kind of shadow work and soul work, personal work, I like to use this particular deck because it gives me what I need. So if we have a look, let me get my finger out the way so that you can see what it is. This is the Two of Wands. Now I want you to just look at the little character over here. To me, immediately, it looks like he's standing on a podium, okay? It looks like he's standing on a podium, or he's standing at the top of the mountain. Whatever he's holding in his hand, he's holding a bit of light in his hand. And maybe the light that he's holding is the success, is the victory, is the accomplishment. But look how small it is in comparison to the whole image. We don't know what's going on the rest of it. Now, I see in the background of this particular card, to me, it looks like this light shining down. But then I think to myself, is it a light, or is it a human form, okay? Because look here, it looks like their shoulders. I don't know how to show you. To me, it looks like their shoulders, and this reddishy brown color could be like the jacket or the coat, and this is the open coming in from, so it's almost like it's coming in through the body. And here we have this little figure at the bottom here who is holding this light, who is holding everything that matters and everything that is relevant and appropriate. So nothing else is relevant except in this moment that light that he holds in his hand. Where is his ego? His ego is not looking at the bigger picture. His ego is focused on the light in his hand. So the Two of Wands is about duality. It's about understanding consequences, decisions, actions, purpose, function, all of these amazing words, and all of that is very ego-based, because repercussions, consequences, if you do that, then that's going to happen. If you don't do that, then that might not happen. So there's all of these kind of decisions and actions and thoughts that we all have within us, and we're all the time going, but what if I make the wrong choice? What if I and all we actually need to do is just do it and be okay with however it turns out. Be okay with however it pans out. When we attach expectation to the outcome, we are again bringing the ego into it, because self-gain, self-recognition, validation, all of those kind of words. Now, those are all important. We all want to succeed. We all want to be happy. But do we need to succeed in order to be happy? Do we? I don't know. I don't think so. Personally, in my own life, there have been many times where I have not succeeded, but I've been happy. So we've got to ask ourselves, where is your ego coming into it? Have you got yourself convinced that you will only be happy, content, and satisfied once a series of events or situations have occurred? Is it possible for you to actually be happy right here and right now, regardless? Is that possible? It's actually a really, really interesting question, because I think a lot of you, the answer is going to be no. A lot of you, your happiness is conditional. And when we have conditional happiness, that's when we have ego ruling our drive, our purposeful being and everything. We need to find happiness regardless of your status, regardless of your circumstances, and regardless of who and where and what you are in life. You need to be happy, whether you are at the lowest rung of the corporate ladder or at the highest rung of the corporate ladder, whether you're not even in the corporate race, whether your bank account is fat or empty. You need to be able to be happy, because none of those things should determine your happiness. Look at your personal circumstances. So we're removing career and we're removing money. Let's look at relationships. Are you happy with yourself, with your friendships, with your partnerships, with your romantic connections that you have with people? Do they make you happy? Or are you staying in relationships because of conditional circumstances and events? You answer that for yourself. Okay, so ego, do not do things because you have to in order to find happiness. Do not do things because everybody else is doing it and everybody else says so. Let's be honest. You and I, all of you watching, listening to me right now, we've chosen, our souls chose to be incarnated in this lifetime, in this time frame, in this place, right here and now, because of the lessons, the opportunity, the growth, and I'm talking soul growth, that we could experience and what we can offer to the collective. And that's going to take me to the next portion of this particular reading, this particular conversation with Spirit. Gosh, I've just looked at how long I've been talking for. So a lot of the other questions that I have seen that have been put through to me are around what can we do individually to assist the collective. So again, I am sort of broadly categorizing the question, broadly categorizing, the things that people have been asking. Yes, we have got all sorts of strange things going out there, scary things going out there, huge, big, massive events taking place that could be absolutely disastrous for you and I. And there is fear. Of course there's fear. Of course there's fear. There should be fear. We should be worried, not for which side is going to win or lose, but worried about consequences of the actions. And again, as ego beings living in this world, here we bring it all back together. As ego beings living in this world, we have to understand the ramifications, the repercussions of things that people do. So, what can you and I do as individuals, as small beings in this collective world? What can we do to contribute positively to positive outcomes? And you know what it is? I'm suddenly in my head. I'm suddenly, I'm suddenly being reminded of, oh my word! Now it's gone. Kids little movie. Captain Hook. Is it Captain Hook? If you don't believe, you lose all the magic. I think it's Captain Hook. You'll have to remind me below. I'm terrible. But I'm suddenly saying if we don't believe in magic, the magic is gone. If we don't believe in truth, honesty, happiness, and joy, if we don't believe that everything's going to be okay, it won't be. If we give into the fear, we feed the fear. If we don't believe and if we don't have hope for a brighter, better tomorrow, if we don't believe that things will work out as they need to and that it'll be okay, it won't be. So you and I, what can we do to positively help effect or participate in global craziness that's happening right now? All you have to do is hope and believe for a positive outcome. And when I say that, you can't say, well, I really hope that this happens, and then there's this little voice in the back of your mind that's telling you, don't be silly, it's not going to work that way. If you've got that little voice that's telling you it's going to be awful, it's going to be bad, and this is the end, and this is the beginning of the end, and all of that kind of thing, whatever that last voice is that speaks in your mind is the one that you're actually believing, is the one that you're actually allowing to be true. So from a collective consciousness point of view, from a collective ego point of view, friends, you and I, we need to hold on to hope. We need to hold on to hope for a better tomorrow. And we need to understand that in order to have a better tomorrow, we have to go through pain. We have to go through tragedy. We have to go through difficulty because we have to be stripped of ego. Stripped of ego. So what can you do? What can I do? We can believe, we can have hope, and we can send as much love and as much positive energy as we possibly can into the world. If you make it a regular part of your day to pray, to send positive thoughts, to send positive beliefs, and if you make sure that in your frame, in your world, in your little universe, that everything is happy, that everything is pure, and that you are not living from a place of greed and ego, then it will eventually start spreading. And we need to spread that love. We need to spread that positivity into the world so that we may all come together. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle cards again. I don't know why, but I'm just going to shuffle cards again. So, you and I can't get involved, and you and I, there's nothing physically tangible that you and I can do to make a positive change. There is nothing. But if we speak a good talk, if you walk a good walk, and if you help one person change their thinking from negative to positive, and if we all do that, just imagine the pyramid. Just imagine that kind of 1 affects 2, which affects 4, which affects 16, which affects 32, and I'm stopping there before I get the maths wrong. But if we understand the exponential outcome of the positive change that we all do, can you imagine how, yes, you or I can make a positive difference in this world? So let's not always focus on the ego of other people, of what are they doing? Why are they doing that? Do they not understand this? Do they not know that? How dare they this and how dare they that? That's ego talking. That is when you're saying, I don't want to do that event, function, or situation because somebody says so. You're operating from a place of ego. We have to understand the collective energy. okay? And the only impact that you and I can have is in that collective energy. So let's do that. Let's become mindful. Let's take our egos and shove them in our pockets. And let's say, ego, you are my drive. You are the reason I get up every day. I have just thrown cards all over the table. Ego, you are what makes me want better things for myself. Ego, you are the thing that makes me want a better relationship. Okay, so that one keeps flying across. The same card has flown around quite a bit, so I'm going to bring it through because this is obviously Spirit saying, pick this card. The card that we have here, if I can get my fingers to uncover the brand, the card's number and name. So this is the Eight of Swords. And the Eight of Swords is the card of being trapped by your own mind, trapped by your own thoughts, trapped by your own perceived situations, and this is exactly what Spirit is saying to us right now, is that the way that we live in this world, the way that the expectations, the impressions, the thoughts, the whatever it is that we have are manifesting and creating our reality. So if you are living in a world of fear of big global events, fear of small local events, fear of financial loss, a fear of emotional suffering, fear of whatever, you're creating and manifesting that as a reality. So what we need to do is we need to not feed the fear. We need to, it's to be human is to have fear. To be human is to have doubt and to have insecurities and to have all of those kind of things. But I think what this is saying to us, what Spirit are wanting us to recognize, is that we have control over our own realities by recognizing the way that we are perceiving and seeing. One of the questions I had on my Facebook group was actually, and I think there might have been more than one question, was about this whole 3D, 5D reality situation. Now, what we have to understand is that human is 3D, we are 3D. Just to put it in a simple term. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't always understand all these scientific kind of ramblings, but we are 3D. Our reality is a 3D reality. It is a tangible, physical 3D reality. Yes, we want to evolve. We want to go into the next dimensions and we want to become, all that we can be. But if we're living in fear, if we are feeding the fear monster, if we are feeding this fear of, I don't want to do that, I don't want to participate in that because then people are controlling me or whatever it may be. If you are feeding that, and we're talking about it all the time, how can you evolve? How can you become a better person? How can our collective human consciousness evolve if we're all stuck in old fear-based, anxiety-based, thought-based processes? So, gosh, I have no idea where this is going. So really what Spirit is saying to you is be open-minded. Let's open our minds. Let's not allow anybody else's consciousness to limit or restrict us. Let's trust. Okay? Let us just open our hearts, open our minds, and allow Spirit in. And let's trust that whoever it is that is orchestrating our ego 3D reality, that they know what they're doing. And let's recognize that the only thing that you and I need to focus on is being of good heart, of being of good mind, of being pure and honest, and not having any attachment to anybody else's activities. I'm not saying we need to be blind to it. I'm not saying we need to ignore it, because absolutely not. We need to be aware. But it's what energy you're putting into that. Are you putting the energy of telling everybody, don't do that, don't do that, don't believe this, don't believe that, don't? Because if you're doing that, you're feeding the dragon. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop doing that. You can have your own opinion, you can have your own thoughts, but do it with love. Don't do it with aggression. Don't do it with anger. Don't do it with doubt. Don't do it with ego. Don't do it with ego. Don't. I need to get the camera into focus again. I'm so busy talking, I don't even notice when the camera goes out of focus. I have no idea how long it was out of focus. Well, I do apologize for that. So friends, we all have our own opinions. We all have our own understandings of 3D, 5D, consciousness, all the rest of it. We've all got our own understandings and our own belief systems. And I'm here today to tell you that you're right. We're all right. You're right. I'm right. Everybody else is right. Our understanding is our understanding. Our reality is our reality. But what I want to ask you today, what Spirit want to ask you today, is don't feed fear. Okay? So if you have a thought process around a belief system, and I'm not talking religion here, that's absolutely not what I'm talking about, okay? That's absolutely not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that people do in their own lives that you think might be right or wrong, okay? Opinions that you have on other people's actions, opinions that you have on other people's processes, opinions that you have on the way other people live their lives. Let's stop that judgment. Let's stop that ego, okay? Because we need to understand that somebody else's reality might not work for you, might not be the same for you. You might not agree with that, and that's okay. And that's okay, all right? As long as it's not negatively impacting, their actions are not negatively impacting on yours, don't get involved. Stay out, all right? Leave them to live their own reality. Leave them to live their own 3D reality, because if you want to evolve yourself to a higher dimension, if you want to recognize your soul's function and purpose on this earth plane, it is about letting go of whatever is holding you hostage. And what's holding you hostage is fear and anxiety. So let's step away from that. Let's not prejudge or have bad expectations on anything in life at the moment. Let's let it all go. Let's set ourselves free. Let's set our neighbors free. Let's set our country free, our world free. Let's everybody focus on love, because it's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that's important. You cannot love externally if you don't love the self. Now, loving the self, immediately I can hear everybody going, but isn't that ego? Loving the self and being selfish. And I think this was another question that was asked about how do we be selfish? And actually, I think I'm going to find the question. So excuse my eyes going all over the place as I click on my screen. The question comes, how to put yourself first, and in brackets selfish, but still be kind to others. So how do we do that? How do we be selfish without being selfish? We have to change what the word selfish means. We have to recognize that selfish isn't bad. Selfish is paying attention to the self, which is what you've been put on this earth plane to do. You've been put on this earth plane to learn, to evolve, to grow, to experience. And sometimes those lessons, growth, and experiences are not always positive. They're not always happiness and sunshine. They're not always positive. Sometimes they can be negative, hard, difficult, challenging, and that's okay. And that's okay. But you have to take care of yourself. You have to learn to say no to other people. You have to learn to let other people do whatever it is they want to do, whenever they want to do, and however they want to do. And you need to be okay with that. You need to be okay with that. You need to stop expecting everybody to do the same as you, because it's not going to happen. When we release ourselves from validation, external validation and external approval, suddenly we're not operating in a negative ego anymore. Suddenly we're saying, I see you, I love you, and I'm okay with you. Now I am focusing on myself. If people don't like what you're doing, they're operating in ego. They're operating in negative ego, and they're feeding the dragon. We're going to stop doing that. And we're going to say, you know what, if you want to think differently to me, if you want to believe differently to me, it's okay. But I am living in a place of love, unconditional love and acceptance. And I will not allow myself to be tortured, to be restricted, or to be contained by any thought, by any emotion, or anything. We need to free ourselves, friends. We need to free ourselves from expectations. And again, if we do that today, the world is not going to be a better place tomorrow. It's going to take time. Because if you and I can do that today, start loving unconditionally, without judgment and without expectation, then we help one person, one other person to do that. They help one other person. And if we keep doing that, our pyramid will get really, really big. Our pyramid is not one at the top and everybody. Our pyramid is forever turning and evolving and changing, and that's okay. And that's okay. But what we have to do is we have to stop the negative self-speak. Actually, we need to stop the negative. And I see I'm all blurry again. All blurry again. Camera, can you look at me, please? Maybe that's exactly what the message is. Maybe the message is when things get a bit blurry, when things get out of focus. Don't succumb to that. Don't fall victim to that. Don't get caught up in the blurry chaos. Stop what you're doing. Get your focus back and then carry on. You know, friends, I know I'm being silly now and I'm laughing about it, but you know what? Maybe there's truth in that. Maybe there's truth in that, and maybe that's exactly what we need to know, what we need to do. Because there she goes out of focus again. All right. You know what, Spirit? I hear you. I recognize you. I'm going to play. You see, and as soon as I pick it up, so I think that was Spirit saying to us, we're done. I just want to play. I just want to acknowledge. I just want to give gratitude and thanks. Thanks to each every single one of you for being with me here today. Thank you so much for participating in my conversation with Spirit. I hope that you heard whatever you needed to. I hope it made sense. I hope it speaks to your heart and soul, and I hope it gives you a little bit of food for thought over the next couple of days. A little bit of food for thought on who you are, what you are, how you are, why you are, and what is truly important and significant in your life, and what you can do to make a positive difference in this world. Friends, thank you so much for being with me. I am so grateful. Unconditional love and blessings from my heart to yours. And until we connect again, take care.